thank you all for watching. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we bring you real life real estate solutions. And right now we're dealing with a real life real estate situation. I am actually doing the show remotely from a different device, so it's a different things going on, but we're professionals and we keep it moving. And today we have one of my, I have to say, absolute favorite guests to have had on the show and have had the opportunity to interact with. Mr. Erroll Allen is a true testament of what it takes to make things happen in the real estate investment business. But listen, man, I was actually trying to do you some justice and giving you a proper introduction. But there's nothing better than what you would be able to share with the folks about yourself. But I do definitely want to say thank you for taking the time out to join us today. We're going to get into some real good stuff. We're going to be sharing some phenomenal information. And I was just sharing with the folks, man, that you are a true testament of I would say what everybody likes is an underdog story. And I have seen you grow in this business, from nearly the beginning to where you are now, and you're just, continuously doing leaps and bounds, and kind of outrunning some of what some people would consider the competition. But I see you're running with blinders on, and you're not paying any attention to any of those things that are on the side or in front of you, because you're knocking down all the obstacles. So I definitely want to say salute you for continuously making moves and continuously doing what you're doing, even in the midst of all the noise that's around us all. So I want to definitely give you an opportunity to share with the folks who you are, and then we'll get into a bit of, sharing some knowledge, and then we'll talk about more of what you got going on right now.
So quick synopsis about me. I'm Erroll J Allen. I am currently 26 years old. I've been in the real estate space for about 6 years, going to be 6 years once December hits. And I had the most awesome luxury of having the best starting point ever. I had a 590 credit score. I was negative $50,000 in student loan and credit card debt. I just freshly retired from school, and I also just quit my only corporate job. I worked for 6 months. So that was my starting point of getting into real estate investing. So fast forward, I was able to start off with wholesaling, and I was to literally bootstrap my way out of my debt and raise my credit score from a 590 to like a 740 and pay off my debt in under 2 years by strictly just wholesaling. And then I added another skill to my tool belt by doing renovations. And then most recently, I added another skill to my tool belt by doing buy and hold via short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and rental arbitrage. So I've been literally just adding on and compounding the works and efforts I've done, and still do everything, still do wholesaling, still do renovations, and real heavy on Airbnbs to date.
Wow. So that tells the folks a little bit about who you are. Hopefully folks will get hip to some of the terminology that you use. You said rental arbitrage. Now that in the world of what we do, we understand what that is. But for some of the folks that may be watching that may not have a clue of what that is, can you kind of share with them what rental arbitrage is?
Yeah, so when you hear arbitrage, just think of like finding a white space. So pretty much what I've done is I found that there are homeowners who are willing to rent out their properties, but they're tired of doing the headache of traditional landlording, where you go out, rent it, and then you get a tenant calling you at 9 p.m. saying, hey, my toilet's out, you got to do something. Or they're a few days behind on rent. Or an AC goes out and you're only making $350 a month, and you got to cover this $2,000 expense, but you've only been collecting $350 a month. So what I've come to find out is those same homeowners, they got into this because they wanted what? Cash flow. But they didn't want all the problems that came with the cash flow. So here I come with a whole entire different business model. I'll say, hey, listen, I'll come in, I'll take care of all those late night calls. I'll take care of all those AC runs as long as it's up to a certain price point. And I'll take care of all of that. In exchange, just let me have your property, and I'm gonna go turn around and sublease it and put it up on Airbnb. And with that same property, you're charging me $1,000 to $1,500 for it. It's making me anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 on Airbnb. So now, wow. The homeowners got the cash flow that they wanted, minus the problems, because I'm taking on the problems now.
Absolutely. And that's, again, that's one of those situations where You know, I was just having this conversation with Angela Davenport on last week. You know, for those of you that caught the show last week, she was talking about just being in a space where you have the ability, you have the capacity to be able to work deals where some other people may not see that there is actually a deal. And that's, you know, again, that's one of the things that I certainly want to give you kudos, because you definitely have that tool in your toolbox to be able to, you know, make deals and maneuver things to make things work. Um, let's go back. You know, I want to give the folks, make sure the folks that are watching, some of the people that may not have watched the show before, give them a little bit of historical data about yourself. I know we talked about, you know, you used the word that you retired from college. I love that. I love that. Great stuff. So, what got you interested in real estate investing? Why real estate investing? Why was that something that you wanted to get into when you retired from college?
So ironically, at the time, it couldn't be any more perfect. So as soon as I retired from college, I went straight into corporate because my family was like, well, you can't just, you know, float around. You got to do something. So I went into corporate, and I figured out that I didn't like that either, because corporate had me waking up at 7 a.m. to be stuck in traffic for 1 hour to pull up to work at 8:30 a.m. and stay there till 5. I like to sleep in.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm not, this wasn't going to last long anyway. So after I retired from corporate, I was actually reading a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I literally just shared this on my Facebook a few days ago. It told me to think unimaginably big and share, and then, you know, put like a little blueprint of what you want to get done. So I did just that. And one of the things I wanted to get done was heavily have a hard portfolio of real estate. So I want to have rental properties. I wanted to have those take care of my month-to-month commitments so I can do what I want to do with my time. So real estate was always going to be a focal point in whatever I was doing. I just didn't think it was going to happen as soon as it did. If you had asked me back when I was 19, I was telling people I probably wouldn't get into real estate until I was 25. Well, lo and behold, I started at 20.
So now, what does a 20-year-old with a 590 credit score do to get started in real estate?
Well, you don't have really many options except for wholesaling. But at the time, looking back on it, I had a lot more options than I realized. But wholesaling was definitely the draw for me getting into real estate, because it required no credit check on my end. And I was able to find opportunities, find problems that homeowners wanted to offload. And all I had to do was find an investor who's willing to pick up that problem and make a profit off of it. And then I would get my profit in between because I found the opportunity. So my very first wholesale deal, I tell this every single time, it was off a bandit sign. I met a homeowner by the name of Mr. Reed Stewart. He's actually Facebook friends with me, and we've done quite a few deals now. He called me off my bandit sign, and he had 30 plus properties he's looking to offload. To this day, he's only giving me 5. I'm still waiting on the other 25. But he gave me the first one, 1170 Wilmington Street. I'll never forget my first wholesale deal. I got it under contract for $15,000, sold it for $18,000. We closed on in 2 weeks, and then he gave me 2 more after that, and I had the bug from that point forward.
Wow, wow, wow. And you know that again, I want to give you, you know, hats off to you again, because it was that, you know, now hearing that story, it had to be that helped you catapult yourself into, you know, just a track record of what you've accomplished in this time. So from that experience, of course, you've gone on to do several other, you know, phenomenal things. One of which I want to definitely, you know, again, give you kudos to starting Young Bucks Nation. Tell us how that came about, and what is first of all, tell us what Young Bucks Nation is for those folks that don't know, and tell us what does that encompass, what's involved in Young Bucks Nation.
Okay, so Young Bucks Nation is actually your real estate business in the box of a support system. It's a millennial CEO network that's geared towards showing people how to become full-time real estate investors. We have this awesome online university called Young Bucks University, where I literally document and show people how I've done what I've done, and they can apply the same principles, same strategies to get the results for themselves if they're willing to put in the work. Now, how those
say that again. What was the last part?
If they're willing to put in the work. Because it's not just sign up and results come. Nah, there's something in between called work.
Absolutely.
Once you sign up, work, then you get the results. Simple as that.
Definitely.
I always put that disclaimer out there. So Young Bucks Nation actually came to be back in 2017 when I was having a great wholesaling year. I think I think that was my first six-figure year, if I recall. Yeah, I think it was 2017. Yeah. So I was doing great that year. Me and my buddies were doing great. And a lot of the OG investors were like, man, you guys are really doing it. And I don't know how it came to be, but they kind of like identified me as the leader of these group of millennial investors closing deals. So they kind of just gave me the title of Young Buck, like that Young Buck is killing it.
Yeah.
And then I took it one step further. I was like, why don't we do something called Young Bucks Nation? So me and about 5 of my millennial friends, we came together on it. And I kind of pitched it to them. We were sitting in a WeWork office, and they were like, yeah, that's a dope idea. You should run with it because that was your idea. And here you are today.
Yeah, the CEO and founder of Young Bucks Nation. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. So now you said it's a business in a box. So you generally, basically what you do is you teach people how to get started in the business of real estate.
Yep.
Right.
So we have multiple courses on Young Bucks University. One of our biggest ones is obviously the 8 steps to having a multiple six-figure wholesale business. And that literally walks people through the process of how to identify leads, how to have conversations with homeowners, how to market for them, how to dispo them. It goes to all that in my 8-step module. And then there's other stuff as well, Airbnbs and whatnot.
Got it. What's the age range of being a young buck, man? I never was able to become a young buck, man. I guess
there is no age range. There is no age range. I'm gonna say as long as you breathing, you can be a young buck.
You can be a young buck for sure. I know I've been trying to be a young buck for some time, man. I guess my age range cut off. When you get that 40 plus, you're not considered a young buck anymore.
We got 40 plus members too. Come on over.
For sure. And speaking of that, I want to definitely dive into that because I have seen that you brought on some people, man, that you've actually helped them, through their journey. Tell us about a journey of someone that you work with. It doesn't have to be no one specific, or you don't have to share the name or anything. Tell us about the journey of showing someone how to get started and where they've actually gotten to, and what did they have to do, based on the work. What kind of work did they have to put in to make that happen?
So 5 great stories came to mind, but I don't want to go through all 5 of them. I'll give you one of them. So there was one person that back in the time I had an assistant, and he was an Uber driver at the time. So, he's driving for Uber. He's already in the space. He's driving for dollars per se. He just didn't know of driving for dollars. So my assistant invited him out to an event. And when he came out to the event, he said, so I can find these properties and make thousands of dollars just by finding people who want to sell. And I was like, yes, you can. So he ended up joining. And when he joined, within his first 60 days, he was able to close, I believe, 3 wholesale deals. And that brought him just shy of like 30K.
Wow. And
then
what work did he have to put in? I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off.
So to answer that question real quickly, the work he put in, he was doing the exact same thing he was doing anyways. He was Ubering, right? So all he had to do was, as he was doing his routes, take an extra left turn, take an extra right, and then you see a vacant property, write it down. Definitely. And then he did just that. And then back in the day, we had a do it done for you skip tracing process. We just sent him the list and we skip trace it for you. And we did that. And he sent us over a list of like 300 vacant properties, fresh. So we over here like, oh, we got some work to do. So we skip trace the list and, give it back so he can make the calls. And within literally the first month, hey, I got these people who want to sell. I got these people who want to sell. And we were just knocking them out.
Great stuff. So he made the calls himself?
Yes.
Great stuff. It's those kind of stories, man, I love to hear, man, where you actually have people that understand that the work is necessary in order to be able to accomplish these things, and you're a perfect example of that, of actually putting in the work and, getting to the point of where you are now. So tell us about, we're going to get to, I want to definitely get over into, some of the reasons of why you got into the Airbnb, but tell us about your wholesale journey. Give us maybe a polar idea of what was one of the easiest deals you've done and kind of what was one of the most difficult deals that you had to do in wholesaling.
Okay, the easiest deal I've done is the one where I don't have to go to the property and the buyer sends money straight cash. One of my earlier wholesale deals, this was like year 2. I met this cash buyer, and I do mean truly cash buyer, meaning he prepaid me earnest money. So he gave me $5,000 in earnest money and said, keep this for the next 3 deals.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
when he sees the house that he likes, he's like, you already got the earnest money, so there is no confusion. If I say I want it, it's done. So
Absolutely.
there was a
Absolutely.
house with me and one of the founders of YBN at the time. He brought a lead to me. He cold called and everything, and I said it to him. I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this lead?" He's like, "I want it." So 2 weeks later, we closed on it. There was no hassle whatsoever. We got it for like 23. We sold to him for 31. He already gave me earnest money for 3 deals, so I already had the earnest money. We didn't have to argue about that, and it was in and out. And to this day, actually looking back on it, I closed the deal last year, where it was one of my biggest wholesale deals to date, and he was the seller. It was one of the properties that we had sold him 3 years ago, because we sold a bunch of properties. And he was just like, "Hey, I never got around to doing anything with this. I'm moving over to the trucking industry. Can you offload this for me?" He gave it to me at a price where I was just like, "You're kidding." He's like, "Yeah, just offload it." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow. So it was hopefully higher than what you sold it to him for originally, right?
Oh, most definitely. But
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
he bought it from us back in 2017. 2019, he reached back out to me, and the property was in Oakland City. So you know how much
Okay.
values
Yeah.
went up. So he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm not greedy. I know you're gonna make a buck or two on it. This was a great deal you brought to me at the time. Just give it to somebody else." I'm like, "Okay."
Great stuff. Great stuff. That's great, man. So tell us about one that was challenging for you.
Okay, one of my most difficult deals, and I'm gonna give it a recent one, and I'm gonna give you like a real difficult one. So one of my most recent deals, it's always deals where it's not like, because all money is good money, but it wasn't like a $10,000 check per se. It was a small, $2,000, $3,000 check with me and another one of my buddies, and we had the buyer lined up, we had the seller lined up, everything was good to go, but the closing attorney. The closing attorney is what made the process so difficult. Talking about, you gotta get your paperwork lined up like this. We need to see your full 60-page trust document. Like, asking for things that no other closing attorney has asked from me. So I'm over here. I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get my attorney involved. I'm gonna have the title brought up, because at the end of the day, the seller's on a clock. He's like, every day that when I'm closing, he's like, all right, it's the price is either going up or I'm leaving. So fortunately, he figured it. He fortunately was able to show the light that it wasn't us holding up the process, and it was the attorney. And he was just like, "Okay, I know where the source of the problem is." We got the deal done, but it was only after I got to the point of literally putting an email together with my attorney and that other attorney saying, "Hey, give this file to my attorney so she can close out the deal." And they're like, "Oh, we're ready to go. We got the HUD. We can close tomorrow." I'm like, "Well, ain't that something?"
Isn't that interesting?
Ain't that something? So now,
well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My bad. I was gonna say one of my real, like, that was a nuisance one because of the parties, the attorney. But one of my true hard ones was back in the day. This was another big wholesale deal. The woman had to go through probate. One of the family members passed. It was just a long legal process. And throughout the whole legal process, I was building up great rapport. But there was all these other people who were coming and offering higher prices. But because I built such great rapport and we was going through the process, I'm like, "Yo, listen, as soon as we get it done, we go get you taken care of, blase, blase." It was just more of a time-consuming thing and just going through the paperwork and getting it done. But once we got the deal done and once it closed, it was a good thing.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And you said something that I want to make sure I highlight. That's very important in what we do. You said something about building rapport. So this was with the seller, I imagine. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell the some of our newbie wholesalers that may be watching, how important, or even maybe maybe even some of the experience, we'll call them experienced wholesalers. How important is it to build rapport with the seller?
It's the most important thing. If you don't identify that pain point and then you don't bring a solution to that pain point, at the end of the day, what's holding them back from going to somebody else? Price.
True story.
That's it.
Yes.
Price is it. But once you figure out this woman's trying to sell her house so she can pay for her kids' tuition, now you can circle back in times of doubt. Like, "Hey, listen, I understand, Miss Barbara, that other people are coming in, but we gotta remember we got something locked in here. We try and get little Jimmy his tuition, right? We go get this taken care of." Now you're resurfacing that pain point, and now they're explaining to themselves why they're in this whole process in the first place, because I'm trying to get this problem solved.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Because you've established a situation where they can win, and I think that's one of the biggest things many times, wholesalers or even, regular buyers in many cases miss the ability to be able to establish that type of rapport, not knowing the importance of, you're in a position to solve a problem. And, sometimes, like you mentioned, your goal is, one of the things that you have to do is remind the seller in many cases of the problem that you're helping them to solve. And especially in our current situation with, COVID and all these things happening where, people are expecting that people are going to be faced with so many different problems. And rapport is a major part of what we do as buyers, wholesalers, anyone that's interacting with a seller, that's direct to a seller. um, Whether when you remind them of the importance of the issue that they have and how you are going to be the one to help them solve that. And like you mentioned, oftentimes price is not always the determining factor and what you do in helping them get their problem solved. Because time, you know, sometimes just time, a matter of time, how quickly they can get it done. And with the service that we provide, we definitely give them the ability to choose between us, who will give them opportunity to get their situation resolved quicker, or someone who may give them a little more money and not get it done as quickly as they want to. So that's great stuff. Great stuff. So on from wholesaling, you got into developing. You got into developing, building new houses. How was that transition? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I started wholesaling, and then after year two of me just strictly wholesaling, I had a little cash in my account. I rose the credit score up. I reduced the debts to nothing. And I was like, okay, now let me stop do what I was originally trying to do. Now that I'm in a good position, let me see if I can start holding, or at least, get into a space of going through fixing up a property. That way I can eventually have the option to hold one after I do it. So my first
Mm,
rehab was with one of my ex-mentors at the time, and he had a GC, and we was going through the whole process, and I was learning things, but I came to find out that my ex-mentor at the time doesn't have as a developed experience in rehab as I had thought. So I was more
mm,
hands-on. I was contracted every day. I was on site asking questions, seeing what had to be done. And that's why I was building up my experience per se. And I was doing that for the first couple deals that we did. And then eventually I branched off and did my own rehabs. And then from that
mm.
point, I'm really focused. Like, I'm super focused on the Pittsburgh community. We've done 10 plus houses over there. We hold in 10 plus houses over there. So it's been like my focal point is to stay in that concentrated neighborhood.
Got it, got it, got it. What was the initial draw to that area?
Numbers, affordability, and price. So I can get a house and ARVs, or after repair values, about 250,000. It was even lower back when we started. It was like 215. Some was like 190, and the
Mm,
mortgage on those houses was anywhere from like $700 to $1,100. And then, like I was saying
mm.
earlier, when I can turn around and put on Airbnb and make anywhere from 3,500 to $5,000, that's a
Wow,
big spread.
wow, wow. That's huge. That's huge. So, so now, from wholesaling to rehabbing to developing, what would you say was the biggest challenge you had in making those transitions?
So my biggest challenge would be contractors. I think that's
Okay.
everybody's biggest challenge.
Oh my
Contractors and
goodness, yeah.
scheduling. Those were my two biggest things. I'm still going through it today. Not the contractor as much, just the scheduling portion. Because everybody
Mm,
knows it. If you come across a good contractor, you better keep him busy, otherwise he will get more work.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that would be the biggest thing. So when I'm so used to, like with a wholesale deal, you get the contract, earnest money needs to be in the next day, title needs to start being pulled like the day after, and we already in our minds have it set to close out in 2-3 weeks long with no title issues. But when you come to
Right.
rehabbing and you try to bring that same speed of urgency to rehabbing, you're like, okay, we're gonna have this demo done within 3 days, then we're gonna have the
Right.
framers come back out 3 days, and then we're gonna have all the roughings done. It never goes like that. The dumpster company might not even bring your dumpster on time, but then the demo people are like, well, we have nowhere to throw out your stuff. And guess what? All of a sudden, the city drives by and they're like, oh, we're going to issue a citation if you don't get this debris up. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. This wasn't how I planned for it to go down.
So would you say that that's real life real estate investing?
Very real, very real. Rehab. If you partake in a rehab, you will get the full real life real estate investing experience. I promise.
Exactly. And it's those things, man, that bell I was ringing from the very beginning of this whole real life real estate investing idea is that oftentimes people get involved in this business and they don't realize that, the things that they see on TV aren't what really happens in real life. When you're talking about dumpster, like, what class did you learn? What book did you read that taught you that the dumpster people will be late bringing out the dumpster?
Never seen it. Not a pen, not a word, nothing.
What book did you read that told you that the city inspector was going to drive by when your trash is on the side of the curb and you're waiting on the people to come and get the trash and they give you a citation anyway?
Didn't see that in any books I read either. I read a few of them.
So these are the things that, and what I teach and I talk to people about all the time is, experience is one of the greatest teachers. Actually, it is the greatest teacher, because people can teach and talk to their blue in the face, but until somebody actually gets involved and start going through the process of going through the motions of doing many of the things that we do, it's hard to kind of see it from just a YouTube video, and those YouTube videos are based on one or two experiences that have happened. And then you go and try and do it yourself, and you try to model what someone else has done. And it's hard to match the two because there's going to be several things that come up in the midst that weren't related in that video that you watched or in that book that you read. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Two things actually came to mind when you said that, and it's a trigger point for me. YouTube and books don't talk back. So that's out. And then secondly, you just reminded me of one of my core reasons of why I retired from formal education. I remember I was doing industrial engineering. I was learning math and systems and all that stuff because I'm a numbers kind of guy. And then I switched over to business because even though that I was good at math, I wasn't passionate about it. I just had a skill for it. I switched over to business, and my first day of going into business class, the professor at the front of the class talking a good talk, and I just there was a disconnect, so I had to ask him a question. I was like, excuse me, can you tell me, do you have like a successful, thriving business that you are pulling these thoughts and theories and experiences from? And the second he said no, I tuned out. But I still asked the second question just to kind of like, I already knew my answer, but I was trying to bring the light and justice to the class, just so you know what you're getting into for the next 6 months. I'm like, so if you don't have a successful, thriving business, why are you at the front teaching the class?
You're right.
All class was like, ooh, and in my mind, I couldn't explain it, but I was like, he doesn't have the results I want. He hasn't gone through the experiences, the trials, the errors to justify him teaching to us. So that's why I clocked out and I retired from school from that day forward. Now, I really officially dropped out 4 months later, but I retired second day of business.
I love it. So you were still going just to be going. That was at the point where you were probably networking.
I was networking and I was going through the motions. Now, college brought a great people experience. I do business with a lot of people that I went to college with, like my website guy, one of my biggest young bucks, like all through college. So I'm not knocking it for the people experience, just the education component wasn't there for me.
Yeah. Many people I talk to says that their education began once they left school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't knock, formal education, to get a foundation for many things. Formal education, I say, is a great thing. However, when real life, it gets established, you have to have had either some real life experience in life or be prepared for what's to come to happen in real life. Because like you said, you'll have a professor that'll get in front of the class and teach all these theoretic things. And when you go out to experience those things, many times they're nothing like what was written on the board in front of the classroom. It's nothing like what was shown in that presentation in front of the classroom, because that presentation might have been based on a once or twice, or we'll give it a 5-time situation that was a theoretical situation that may or may not have happened actually. And then you go out into real life and you're experiencing real things, and you're like, how does that apply to what's happening right now? Like we all had the stories, and then we'll get into this, some of this that, whether you may or may not have experienced it. You all had as a landlord, one of the first things people think about in becoming a landlord is, am I going to get my rent on time? And are they going to call me in the middle of the night about a toilet? Right. And most of the times those calls in the middle of the night are about several other things that have nothing to do with the toilet.
Yeah, had that.
Most people, right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, people think, this is what they read in the book. The book says that, you have to deal with toilets. Yeah, no, but I had a guy just called me, a tenant called me and said that, actually a former tenant, property I sold, said that he's dealing with mold in the house. And I'm like, I don't know where mold came from because they had inspected it before I sold it. And he's like, well, they got a leak in the house now. I'm like, oh, wow. Now I'm thanking God that I don't have to deal with these problems anymore with that particular property. But I'm just like, these are things that can happen at any time that many people don't recognize, that these are situations that come up, and it's real life real estate investing. It happens. No matter how many times we attempt to avoid these things, they are part of the process in many cases in doing what we do. But listen, I mean, like I said, you sharing some great experiences. I mean, the retire from school, is a phenomenal thing. And again, I don't want people to be confused about what we're saying about formal education. It's good. It's a good experience. It's good to have that. It's a good foundation. But always be mindful of the things that will happen eventually in real life. So tell the people, you retired from school. And I'm gonna go back so we can catapult forward, to make it all kind of relative. You retire from school, 20 years old, 590 credit score. You started in wholesaling, start making money. How did you then have a mindset shift? That's one of the things I want to get into. Now, I know you got into the business of doing things, because you saw that there were other opportunities that became available as a result of doing what you were doing. What was the thing that clicked in your mind that said, okay, I've accomplished A, I'm going to move on to B because I can, or because I've seen someone else do it? What was that mindset shift for you?
So back when I was broke, busted, and disgusted, and I was still working my corporate job for 6 months, and even when I was still on the verge of retiring from school, I was doing heavy doses of audiobooks, reading books, richest man. But like, I got a whole bookcase behind me of books I was reading as I was going through my dark times. And that's what kind of molded the mindset I had. So that once I finally did start getting money, because we all know money just magnifies the person you are on the inside and your mindset. So I had the mindset first that when the money came, I knew what to do with the money. So now in terms of what was my turning point was just strictly a financial position. My debts were paid, my credit score was at an all-time high, and I had an extra 25, 30 in the bank. I was like, okay, I can now go out and I can make a few mistakes on learning a new skill. See, back when I started, I couldn't afford to make no mistakes. So that's what, like, I already made mistakes. We got to get it right here. So that's why, fortunately, wholesaling was, although it isn't, and sometimes I say it's an unfortunate low barrier of entry, but for me, that was a very big plus. But also, there wasn't much risk involved. It was tying up a property and offloading it for somebody else to take on all the risk, and I just get a check in between.
Got it. And you said another phenomenal thing. You said now you can afford to take the risk, or something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing what you said, but that is in and of itself is a huge mindset shift, because many people look at the business of real estate investing, and I always emphasize the business of real estate investing instead of just calling it real estate investing, because it is a business first. Many people look at the business of real estate investing and they look at how they can get in and make some money and not have to risk anything. Even people who have the money, who have the credit, they don't typically want to go that route because they're afraid of losing. Would you say being afraid of losing is a good mindset to have for someone getting started investing in the business of real estate.
Terrible mindset to have. And promise, if you play not to lose and play to win, you're gonna miss on so many opportunities. Like you have to be, I have to win. If you say, oh, I'm gonna play not to lose or mitigate the quote unquote, it's not gonna work out. It's just not.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Now, I want to fast forward because I want to make sure I'm marrying what you're saying about mindset and taking risks and all that, and how you got started, starting from a lower totem pole to now getting to where you are now. I want to kind of marry all of that together. So that's why I'm kind of going back and forth with some of the questions. So now, where you are right now, right? And we're gonna go through some of the progression. We still got a little time on it. I'm gonna make sure we go through the progression, because this is about, and I want to make sure I even clarify to you why I'm tapping into these multiple areas, is because you're a young man who started at 20 years old with very little to work with to begin with, except for the ambition, right? And there are some people who will look at what we do and they will get the idea, even when you said the main thing that you have to start with, and this is one of the things I want to give shout out to Ron Dimmock, who always says what it starts with, and they say work. You say what it starts with, work. I think many people miss that major component. And looking at the business of real estate investing, first, they don't want to take risk. First, they don't want to do the work. But the expectation is that there's so many things that are going to come to them because they see people such as yourself who had the success, and not understanding that success, first of all, that success didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen with you not doing the work. What would be something that you would share with folks who might miss what you've had to go through to get where you are?
Something that I want to share that people might miss.
Yes.
I mean, it does start with the work, discipline. Big thing, discipline. A lot of people, and I've helped a lot of people make good money in real estate through wholesaling and other avenues. And because they didn't have the discipline of what to do with the money after it was made, they went right back to their situation at hand before it came. So discipline will be the biggest thing. One of the biggest books that I love today is The Richest Man Babylon, because it taught me how to manage $100. If I can manage $100, I can manage 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, so on and so forth. So that would be the biggest thing, is discipline.
Here's one thing I want to do. I love that book, and I'm so excited that you mentioned it. So for the next 5 people that drop a 1 in the comments, I'm gonna send them that book. For the next 5 people that drop a 1 in the comments, I'm gonna personally.
Man, my young bucks better be dropping 1s right now. I hope my young bucks are dropping 1s in the comments. All 5 books better be going to my young bucks.
Right. I'm personally gonna send them that book, The Richest Man in Babylon, if you don't have it already, because that book is phenomenal. I'm so glad you mentioned it. But now we got to get past The Richest Man in Babylon, which is a phenomenal book, because we definitely got to talk about your book that's come out. So tell us now, you are at the point we've gotten past, sort of the beginning, sort of the middle, and your ending is still extended. You still got a long time for the end. But where you are right now, you've actually gotten to a point to master, the Airbnb business, right? Kind of give us the beginning of how you got started in that, and how you've progressed to where you are now.
So the beginning part of my Airbnb journeys actually didn't start off with me traditionally buying a house and then, renting out for Airbnb, or even me finding a landlord to sublet from. It actually came up with me buying my primary residence. So I was at the time renting a townhouse with some of my friends, and I came to a point where, again, I had the money in the bank and I had my great credit score, and I came across an agent who was like, yo, you need to get in a house. Like, you could be doing X. So I was like, you know what? I'll take you up on that. So I bought a house, and when I bought the house, I bought it with the intentions of doing what is called house hacking. So I didn't buy the house just to live in it. I was buying the house to eventually turn this into an ATM. I want this to be paying for itself and paying me to stay. Hence the type of the book, getting paid to stay. So I did that. I found a nice 3-story, 3-bed, 3-bath townhouse. and I live in one of my rooms. I still have full access to the house and everything, but I rent out the other rooms. And because I rent out those other rooms pay for my mortgage.
Wow. Wow. So you rented those rooms out, or did you do those with Airbnb?
I did through Airbnb. I do everything through Airbnb. So they come in, they come out. I literally just had guests check out just like an hour ago, and my cleaners are here right now cleaning up my house for the next set of guests to come in.
Wow. Wow. And this is still a house that you live in, right?
Yeah, I'm in it right now. I walk around, but
Okay.
I'm not gonna do all that.
Right. No, you're good. You're good. But listen, that is phenomenal, man. And real story, true story. That's how I got started investing in real estate. My very first house I bought back in 1998 was a house that had 5 bedrooms. And I had now, of course, I was about 25 then or 26 then, but I wasn't nearly as smart as you are now. So, but I just happened to come across a real estate course, and I learned what I learned in the real estate course, and I bought this house. Now, in that house, I had 5 bedrooms that I lived in one, and I rented out the other 4. Right now, I will not say that it was because I was that smart. I was just buying a house because A, I was homeless, I didn't have a place to stay, and I found an investor to work with that would help me buy the house. And B, I just happened to have 4 friends who needed a place to stay at that time, which allowed me to rent out the 4 bedrooms. So I'm very familiar with house hacking. It was just happenstance for me. I wouldn't call it house hacking then, but I mean it's basically the same scenario. But phenomenal stuff. So your house that you purchased is paying for itself.
Correct.
And to this day, it's continuously being the ATM that you thought it would be from the very beginning.
I have not came out of my own personal funds to pay for my mortgage since my 4th month of staying in the house.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Great stuff, man. I hope these young folks are paying attention to the stuff that you're talking about, man. If I was as half as smart as you were when I was 25 years old, I would have hired somebody to do this show. That's why I continuously salute you, man, because you have accomplished some major things. You've done some, made some major strides, even in your youth, man. And it's definitely commendable for you to continue to do what you do. And thank you again for being a part of the show, and thank you again for being an example for the youth. I'm gonna make sure my son, who's 30 years old, watches this show to tell him that it's somebody that's younger than him. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. But anyway. So now you've done that with your own personal residence. How did that then get you to get involved into, well, I mean, what have you done since then with other properties?
So then, because I was doing that popped another question into my mind. I was like, well, if I can make this good income with a property that I live in, what can I do with a property that I don't live in? How much income could that be generating if I'm not there? So at the time, I was fixing up one of my renovation projects to sell, but then I made a decision. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to refinance it. I'm going to hold it and just test the waters. Oh, my apologies. Someone tried to call me. So I'm going to just refinance it, hold it, test the waters, and see what happens. So I did just that. And to this day, I still have the property. It actually was bringing in, the mortgage on the property was $1,145. And it's bringing in $4,000 to $5,000 a month on Airbnb. So when I saw how well that was doing, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna hold on a few more. So I decided to hold on to a few more. And then this is how I got introduced to the rental arbitrage aspect. I was wholesaling some properties with one of the homeowners that I met in Florida. And ironically, I met him by driving for dollars. I cold called him, traced him up and everything. He gave me one of his lots he had in Pittsburgh. It took me 4 months of following up for him to finally say, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance because you've just been so persistent. Go ahead, do it. Since then, we sold 10 of his properties together. I sold some of friends' properties, all of that. And then about like the 5th or 6th property I sold for him, he's like, you know what? I'm going to fly up from Florida just to meet you. I just want to see who you are, because, you've transparent, you've been at everything. Like, there's never been like no false areas or bad business. Right. So when he flew to meet me, he was like, I like your energy. I like your vibe. I can tell you got head and shoulders. I looked you up on Facebook. I was like, oh, shoot. He done looked me up on Facebook. He's like, I know what you're about. So I want to drive by and I want to show you something. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking he's going to send me some more properties that he wants me to sell. So we walk through and he pulls up on this nice house in the Pittsburgh community. And he's like, now I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want to sell this property. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm still going to check it out anyway. I see what else I can do. He's like, I don't want to sell this property, but I'm tired of renting out to these problem tenants, blah, blah, blah. My painter just paint up the house. We just evicted the last ones. Is there anything that you can think of that could help me out? And again, mind you, at the time, I already had another property in the same neighborhood in the Pittsburgh community, bringing in 4,000 to 5,000 on Airbnb. So I'm like, well, this is essentially me doing the same thing without me having to fix up the property. I just skip that step and I just go straight to the renting out part. And I don't have a mortgage. I'm just, he's the bank. So I was like, you know what? Let me think about it and I'll tell you what I can do. So 24 hours later, you know, I came back. I'm like, hey, I can do this, but I'm gonna need it for this much. And he agreed to it. And the exact same thing happened. I furnished it, put on Airbnb, and then he had two properties actually, one here and one in the Peoplestown area, did the same exact thing. And then just added that to my portfolio.
Wow.
Every day or every month, on the 15th of every month, he gets a check and no complaints.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So that's a part of the arbitrage that you have going on. Great stuff. Great stuff. So you actually just took over a property that he was having problems with and turning into a cash flowing project.
I took the exact same mindset I had with wholesaling and I just applied it to rentals. He had a problem. How can I solve the problem?
Absolutely, absolutely, great stuff. And I know he's grateful all the way through for you doing that for him.
Oh yeah, we good friends, we best friends. He's like, man, Erroll, man.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. So, so now as a result of that and having this experience, and I know that you've taught this on a few occasions. So now you've written a book about it.
Correct. So I wrote an ebook called Getting Paid to Stay. So this is the precursor to all of the Airbnb and the Airbnb rental arbitrage. This is step one per se. That way you can kind of get an insight if you want to do this with your own primary residence that you're already staying in. And you can even take some of those principles, because some of those principles will lead up to the arbitrage or buying a house, fixing up, and refinance method. So it's called Getting Paid to Stay. I actually just released it like 2 weeks ago, like the 1st September, and great turnout. People love the book, great feedback. And it's literally just me giving you the step-by-step process of how I turn my primary residence into an ATM and not a liability.
Great stuff, great stuff. Because that's one of the things that, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki said years ago. I was kind of upset when I heard it because I didn't quite believe it, but he said that your house is not an asset, it's a liability. But you might thumb your nose at Robert Kiyosaki now and tell him
I mean,
that's not completely true.
I mean, I'm gonna just say, we in year 2020, the book was written way before then. So,
Exactly.
Times have changed. But so I can, I am getting paid to stay in my house. So if you look at the baseline definition of an asset,
That's right. And basically what he was saying is that your house takes money out of your pocket.
Yep.
But in these times, like you mentioned, it's a new day. We've learned and created ways to put money for our house, to put money into our pocket. And you certainly have mastered that, which is definitely, again, commendable for you to be able to do something like that. So let me ask you this. First of all, you got the book, Get Paid to Stay. First of all, how do people get the book?
So you can actually go to Young Bucks Nation e-commerce store by going to youngbucksnation.com and then just go to the online store and you'll see it there. Or you can also get it on Amazon and just type in Getting Paid to Stay by, obviously, Erroll J Allen. You can get it on both sites.
Okay. And we'll make sure we share that link. I'm not sure if my assistant is still with me. If you can share that link on Facebook, please go ahead and do that. We'll definitely make sure we share that link so people can actually get that book. Because for what you're sharing, in just an hour of a conversation, if you've put half as much of that information, I'm sure you have, into the book for people to learn how to do that, I'm sure it's going to be a phenomenal book. So I'll definitely be making my purchase pick up one of those today. To get more into it, I've gotten a couple of Airbnbs, but I'm not involved in them. So I'll be honest, I don't know how they work. Uh, so I just collect my check. I'm kind of like the guy that you did business with. Like, yo, just give me the check. I'll figure out how you did it later.
Well, I appreciate
you know,
that.
definitely, man. But so let me ask you this: is this something? Now I know I've seen where you've done classes on this in the past. Is this something? I know you mentioned that as a part of Young Bucks University, there is some information or education on doing the Airbnb or rental arbitrage. Is that something that they can learn more about that there, or are you doing something outside of that as far as a class or way of teaching that now?
So yes to both questions. If you join Young Bucks University or join Young Bucks Nation, which gives you access to Young Bucks University, I have my All About Airbnb webinar recording. This was back when I had I think 5 or 6 Airbnbs. And I talk about the whole process, the inner workings, team, all that stuff. And that was me just going all in on that for 3 hours. So that's obviously already in Young Bucks University. If you just want to buy it separate and just want that one component, you can again get that at the Young Bucks Nation e-commerce store and get that just for separate purchase alone. And I'm also working on a continuation because again, I worked again to pay state ebook. I'm now putting together an Airbnb course as well. And I'm also going to be giving that out to people because a lot of people have been asking me yo, when you go put the course together, I'm like, it's in the works. It's in the works,
Right.
But it's so dense. I can't just go through it when I was doing my wholesale course. That took me 3 weeks to create, going out my videographer and doing all that stuff. With Airbnbs, it's a lot more dense. So it's getting done.
Right.
But yes, both questions.
Got it. Good stuff. And I know whenever you're done with it, whenever it comes out, it's going to be definitely something that people want to pay attention to. So I definitely salute that because, it's work, and it's one of the things that you mentioned that we're going to continuously repeat to people is, it's when you're putting in the work, doing what you do on a day-to-day basis, and then putting in the work to educate people, kind of the process of creating the educational material becomes a part of you doing the work, but refining it and making sure people can receive it in a way, that's another part of the work. So that's why, of course, it takes a little bit of time to get that done because you're still doing the work of creating the work, if folks can get that, So great stuff, man. Great stuff. Listen, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and this information with us today. I think we're coming up on our time, but I do want to ask, is there anything that you as a wise young man that's far beyond your years could tell the millennials of today, kind of some steps that they should be taking to get to where you are now? What would you share with them to be able to accomplish the things? And now this can be relative to some of us old folks as well, but more specifically for the millennials because they are, for lack of a better way of saying it, quote unquote, our future. Hope one of y'all run for president one of these days. That's a whole other conversation. But what would you share with the young folks as well as the old folks and kind of some steps that they should be taking to get to being able to accomplish some of the things that you've accomplished?
So it's funny you asked that question because I have I've been asked that question before and I had it scripted I'm gonna say this, but I was something literally just hit my mind as you was going deeper into it. And the one thing I want to harp on is sacrifice. What are you willing to give up to go up? See, back when I was 19, 20, I had a whole lot of time and I could have spent that time hanging out with friends, partying, doing all the other stuff. But again, I had a North Star that I'm aiming for and I'm still aiming for to this day. So it required me to sacrifice some things. So I didn't do the partying. I skipped the partying stage when I retired from corporate and all that stuff. I was just work. And now people are like, wow, you're miles ahead at the age of 26 versus another 26-year-old who's just getting started or just trying to figure it out. Well, I sacrificed. That's what I did. I sacrificed, and that's why I got the results I have today.
Great stuff.
My biggest thing would be, what are you willing to give up to go up?
Wow. Phenomenal. And that reaches across all age groups. What are you willing to give up to go up? And you know, like I said, man, at your age, when I was your age, I didn't have this mindset. I didn't have that understanding. I wasn't willing to give up nothing. I wanted it all, but I wasn't willing to give up nothing to get it. You know, and I truly believe that there are some people, I mean, young people still, man, that still probably have that mindset and not understanding that, you know, there is a choice. You can either party now or show up like Erroll now and be the party. You know, when you show up, man, you know, you get a lot of respect, even amongst folks that are, you know, several years your senior, because of the things that you have done. And you are teaching many of us, myself included, some of the ways that you're doing things and some of the ways that you move. You know, there was a time that many of us would have said, and some of us still say, it's hard for somebody who hasn't really experienced a whole lot to become a teacher. But you have experienced quite a bit, even in the times where it was good and, you know, all the things are great. But even now, these times, you're experiencing these times as well. So this experience that you're getting is going to make you a more phenomenal teacher. And, you know, I salute you for continuously doing that and educating people on the things that you do, because one of the other things that I always say is those of us that are doing what we do, if we continuously educate people in the right way to do it, we don't create competition, but we create a better way for all of us to be able to eat, you know. And I'll say, shout out to John Stafford, you know, everybody eats, you know, for all of us to be able to continuously have a business where in these days and times where people are worrying, is this a scam? And if they're doing this right, or if they're doing this right, that's why I always tell people, you know, one of the hardest things I tell folks, if you can handle everything going wrong in the business, then you're ready to work. If you can't handle that, then you might want to, you know, take some time and read some more books and watch some more YouTube videos, or, you know, or watch some more HGTV or whatever it is that tickles your fancy to make it easier for you to understand, like you said, that what we do, it requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice of time. It requires sacrifice of sleep. It requires a major sacrifice of shedding that old person that you used to be to eventually become the person that you want to be, you know. So again, I want to applaud you, Mr. Erroll Allen. Thank you so much for what you do, sir. Thank you for taking the time out and joining us on this show today. And I do want to give you one last opportunity to share anything that's on your mind with the folks before we depart today.
Well, I also want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it. And just, I mean, at the end of the day, guys, just like anything in life, it works if you work. As long as you bring that strong desire and work ethic to follow it, you will get where you are trying to go. But if you don't be shocked at the results you get.
True story, true story. So it looks like only Giovanni will be getting a book today.
Good job, Gio. Now I'm gonna be razzing these people on the because we have a Sunday evening Zoom. I'm gonna be razzing everybody in the Zoom who didn't get a book. I'm like, I thought y'all was about that life.
So we got Gio and we got Daryl Morgan. So they were the only two. Well, Gio put one like 3 or 4 times. You only get one book, Gio.
Gio trying to look out for the team. I appreciate it.
Gio's definitely a team player. But Daryl Morgan and Gio are the only two that put ones in. So inbox me your information and I'll make sure I get that book sent over to you. Is there any way how can people reach out to you, or how can they, you know, call you, social media? How can they reach out to you?
Best way to get in touch with me, honestly, nowadays with my Instagram. So if you look me up on Instagram at Erroll, Erroll J Allen, Allen. That'd be the best way to get in touch with me. And if you want to check out more details on, you know, everything I'm doing, you can go to youngbucksnation.com, or you can also go to erroljallen.com as well. You'll see information, and it all leads to the same place. And yeah, if you're looking for the ebook, again, it is on the Amazon and it's also on the Young Bucks Nation site as well. And that will be your best ways of getting in touch with me. But IG first. I just strongly recommend IG. My phone is flooded nowadays.
Got it. Got it. Great stuff. Great stuff. Listen, thank you again, sir. Continue to do what you do. Continue to be the example. Continue to be the guiding light for the people that are following you. And again, I salute you. I definitely salute you in doing all that you do. And folks, I thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for watching today. We almost had some technical difficulties that would have taken us out of here today, but we made it work. I'm in the closet in Brooklyn. Uh,
No excuses.
right. Hey, no excuses. Like you say, you got to make sacrifices. We had to make this show happen today because we had a superstar coming on. So we had to do what we had to do to make it happen. So, Errol, thanks again. Thank you all for watching. This has been the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we bring you real life real estate solutions. Thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Errol. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be talking to y'all soon.
Thank you for having me.